Geography is not just maps. The maps are a language or a tool we use to explain the geographical ideas. What is geography? Geography is the study of our land, of our earth, and how the humans interact with it. So we're studying the physical land and how humans interact with it and how the land influences us. So it's not just maps. The maps are the tools. They're the language that we use. But what we're studying is the land. And I can see, what is this? It's a map. And I'm using that map to give you an idea, to plant an idea into your head. I am giving you a concept. Maybe you're understanding it. Maybe you're not. Let's go to another one. Here's another map. I'm using a map. This is a language. This is a picture. I'm trying to create an idea in your brain. And you might see that and say, oh, I understand a geographical idea. I understand that the differences in land, that the temperature is different up here than up here. Now you can start going in all kinds of directions. So I've given a simple idea by using a tool, by using this language to show you that there are differences in temperatures. It's cold here. It's warm here. Now you can say, well, if it's cold here, I wonder if you can do a lot of farming. I bet it snows up there. I bet it doesn't snow down here. You can start coming up with different ideas. I bet more people like to live where it's warm because it's easier. And I bet less people live up here. So there's a lot of people here. There's less people up here. And if there's more people here, maybe there's more business and there's more factories and it's easier to sell goods. And I bet there's less of that up here. These are all the different ideas that can pop up in your head just because of one simple map, a simple tool to help explain something. Now, that doesn't mean that all those ideas are so, but it's a great starting point to ask questions and to do more research. Here's another map. Oh, there's a lot of tornadoes here. Do people want to live there? Oh man, I don't want to live next to a tornado. Hey, if no one wants to live there, I bet it's really cheap and easy. Well, it may not be easy, but I bet it's cheap, right? If no one wants to buy the land because of tornadoes, I bet I can move there for really cheap. And you see like, oh, well, there are no natural disasters here. In Michigan, I wonder if it becomes really expensive because it's really safe. These are ideas that you could ask by studying a map. But you go back to the other map and say, ooh, but it's really cold in Michigan. So maybe I don't want to live in Michigan. Maybe it's not expensive to live in Michigan because it's so cold. These are ideas that start and originate from using a map as a language to communicate ideas. Again, geography is more than just the maps, but the maps are a good tool for explaining a concept. Here I can easily show you the differences in our country of religious ideas. And he said, well, why is that? Is there a physical barrier? Is there a mountain that separates? Is there a mountain around this area that traps all these ideas? Is there a river around here? Why is it that all these states are so red, but then boom, like it just completely stops. It shuts. It just does not spread anywhere else. Why is that? So you do the research. The map is a great way to give you the basic information and move forward. But it's also a great way to quickly explain information to someone. Here I can see white people are the majority. I can see that Hispanics or Latinos are the majority, or I can also see that Black Americans are the majority in these areas. This doesn't tell us everything we need to know, but it's a great way to quickly communicate geographical ideas. So, in geography, we study from two ways. There are two ways to look at the study of geography. Physical, where we study the physical land. And a lot of times this is just to act like there are no humans on the earth. Void of humans. Get rid of all the humans and now let's look at the earth and let's study the land. Physical is physical. It's nature. It's natural. Climate. So we study the different weathers. Some places it's dry. Some places it's wet. Some places it's hot. Some places it's cool. Some places it's just right. And we study that and try to figure out why that is. And we also try to study, has that changed? Have these climates changed over the millions of years that the earth was here? Has it been hot? Has it been cold? Those are the things that we would study. The weather patterns are different. Some places it rains, some places it's snowy, some places they have a lot of storms, some places they have almost no storms. Some places like Southern California, it's 70 degrees every single day. You wake up at 70, you go to bed at 70, 365 days of the year. Gee, that sounds nice if you're living in Michigan where some days it's 0 degrees. Landscape and snowy. Landscape, this is basically what we see. Do we have mountains around us? Do we have rivers? Do we have oceans? Do we have beaches? Is it flat? Is it rolling hills? These are the physical things that you can touch in the landscape. Mountains Are the mountains rocky? Do the mountains have a lot of plants and trees on them? Are the mountains just dry and there's nothing there? Do the mountains have snow on the top? All the different landscape, physical things that you can see and touch. The ecology, plants and animals. That's that simple. There are different plants and different animals in different parts of the earth. And in geography, we study the different places, and we could look at, well, in this place we have palm trees, and in this place we have pine trees, in this place we have oak trees, and in this place we have no trees. And then we say, hey, in Africa they have tigers, but we don't have tigers in North Carolina. And we could say, hey, we've got a lot of spiders in North Carolina that can bite you and make you really sick. And then you go to Maine, and in Maine, now we don't got any of those spiders. And we go down to Florida, and they've got a couple snakes that I don't want to mess with. But we don't have to worry about snakes in North Dakota. And so we find out, well, why is that? How is that? Is that because of the climate? Is that because of the weather? Is that because of other things in the ecology? Geology, where we study the rocks, we study the minerals, we study underneath our feet, we look in the soil, and we can, and we can also study this and understand how this has affected humans. It's not just, okay, they got this rock here and they got that rock there. We are done studying geography. You take it a step further and say, oh, because of those kinds of stones, you were able to build these kinds of homes. Or it was easy for you and your early civilizations to build homes. And when it was easy to build homes and shelter, it was much easier for you to live. And that's why your society advanced so quickly. And you look at other people and we had really hard stones that were hard to get out of the ground. It was hard for us to build these structures. It was hard for us to survive. So we had to leave. Or there just wasn't very many of us. Or it was so tough to live in these conditions that we were barely surviving every single day, and we never really were able to advance. Meanwhile, the guys in a couple countries over, it was really easy for them to build homes, and it was really easy for them to survive. And so they were able to do different things and learn and create languages and to study and do mathematics and create art. And so they advanced really quickly while we were barely able to stay out of the cold. And that was completely influenced by, we've got really hard rocks to move. Well, they had really easy rocks to move that helped them build stone structures simple. Or you look today, and some countries have oil underneath the ground. They pull that oil out of the ground, and they can use it, and they can sell it, and they get really, really rich. And in some countries, they have nothing. They have no oil. They have no coal. They have no natural gas. And so if they want energy, they have to buy it from someone else. They're always buying their energy from someone else, and so their country is never able to compete. They're always poor. They're always struggling because they don't have the one thing that is most valuable on this earth, and that's basically energy. Human, cultural, geography. This is where we study basically the behaviors and the beliefs of people. This is really boring because it's a bunch of white screens, so I'm going to go a lot quicker here. Political geography. This can be different political views, but this is also the boundaries. Boundaries between states, boundaries between countries. There aren't literally lines drawn on the ground. The lines that separate Mexico and America are not drawn. They are agreed upon by the two countries, and those boundaries have changed. Texas used to be a part of Mexico. New Mexico used to be a part of Mexico. Arizona used to be a part of Mexico. California used to be a part of Mexico, but that has changed. But we didn't literally change the line. The political boundaries, which we study in geography, those change over time. It's because of wars often. Economic geography, different people buy and sell goods. All right, let's get moving into some of these geography standards. Explain how location and place have presented opportunities and challenges for the movement of people and goods. So we're looking at geography, and we're looking at different opportunities and related to geography and different challenges that people have faced in terms of geography. I'm not going to read all this right here. You don't need to hear it. So how to describe, this is one of the things that you need to be able to do as a geography standard of learning, and that is to how you describe the various regions of the United States. So the different places in the United States based on the physical environment. What makes the different parts of America different in terms of physical environment? So if we look out here, this area we refer to as the Rocky Mountains. And so that area are mainly mountainous, but we're not worried about the human geography. We're not really worried about humans right now. We're just talking about the physical differences. So out here, there are mountains. This area is called the Great Plains. And like the word plane, not airplane, but plane like in geography, meaning geometry. Geometry or geography, get it right. That's both. But geometry, you have a plane. And in geography, we also have a plane, and it means flat. And so this area, it's physically distinct. We can notice the physical landscape is flat. You go out here, and I mean, you can almost see for miles and miles and miles. There's nothing in your way because it's all flat because it's the Great Plains. And this is typically the South, the coastal plain. It's very warm, it's very humid, and there's a lot of good farming that can take place. It used to be the Cotton Belt. because of the climate and the weather. Here you also have Appalachian Mountains. Here you have the West Coast, along with another mountain range of the Sierra Nevadas. You have the East Coast with the Atlantic Ocean. You have the Great Lakes in the Midwest. You have the Mississippi River, the Mississippi Delta region. These are all different physical areas on our map. This is the physical geography. You really want to make sure you pay attention to the mountains, the plains, the lakes, the mountains, the East Coast along the Atlantic Ocean, and then you got the Pacific Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico. Here it is again, it's just blown up. So those are the physical differences. You should understand the physical differences in the United States. How do we describe the physical environment? So that's there. I don't need to go over that. So what about in terms of man-made? Well, here's some different regions. So we have the Pacific Northwest, which would be this area, the Pacific Southwest. You might even consider California a part of the Southwest. You have the Rocky Mountains region here. You have the Midwest, which you could expand. People argue that this is the Midwest. You could also say this is the Great Plains area, Southeast, Coastal Plain, the South, and then this would be the Northeast, also New England. These are the different regions in America. There are physical differences. There are also human differences in these areas. We'll also find that if you go to these different areas in the different states, some places taxes are really high, some places taxes are really low. For example, Florida, you do not have a state income tax. Texas, you do not have a state income tax. But here in New York, you have a really high state income tax. Here in California, you have to pay a lot in taxes. It differs by states. It's again, studying geography. We can study the physical, we can study the human. And part of the human are the different laws by the different people in different states. Different states, different people, different ideas. Texas, you get to keep your money. Florida, you get to keep your money. In New York, you got to give your money to the government. California, you got to give your money to the government. There are differences that we can study in geography. Schools, some states spend a lot on education. New York would be one of those states. Some states do not spend much on education, and that's mainly these southern states. And then you say, well, why is that? Again, geography and maps are a jump start. They get us rolling. They do not tell us all the answers. Then you have to do the research. Then you have to do the interviews. Then you have to do the investigations. But this helps us easily understand. Well, in some places, they have it. Now, here's the reason why. If you're paying a lot in taxes, that money goes to the government. What does then the government spend that money on? Education. And if you don't spend a lot on taxes, then the government doesn't have money. And then guess what the government doesn't spend money on? Education. Making sense, seeing how this is important. This is something that we could study and come up with all kinds of different answers. Some places have cities, some places don't have cities. Some places are mainly farmland and agricultural. These are all the differences that we would find throughout the different regions. Some places have a lot of factories. Some places have different religions. We've already gone over that. Mainly you've got the Bible Belt with the Baptists in the South, and then Catholics seem to be the more dominant religion in the rest of the country. Talking about North Carolina now, as we wrap up. So one of the interesting things about North Carolina is we have this thing called the Outer Banks. How is that set up? Well, it comes down to waves. So you have a wave pattern that comes in through the Atlantic Ocean this way, and you have a wave pattern that comes in through this way, and over the course of millions and millions and millions of years, these two wave patterns smashing together, smashing together, smashing together, smashing together. And when they come together, they bring a little bit of that sand underneath together. And after millions of years ago of the water coming together, the sand coming together, it starts to pile up and pile up and pile up and piling up, like they're hitting together, crushing together. And eventually, this area called the Outer Banks, this coastal barrier formed, this basically an island that wraps around the state of North Carolina formed because the ocean kept crushing together. One of the unique formations in geography. Now, because of that, also because of those waves crashing together and the sand getting moved around in all kinds of different directions, so the sand's coming together, there's all kinds of shoals where you're just sailing around in your boat and all of a sudden you run into a shoal that you can't see and your boat wrecks. There are tons of different boat wrecks. So the Outer Banks outside of North Carolina, so one of the neat things is this barrier formed over millions of years, but also underneath, we can see the sand that picked up and created this land, but there's also spots all throughout where the sand is built up, but it hasn't built up above the water, so you can't see it. So you're sailing your boat and bam, all of a sudden you run into a shoal and you're wrecked and you died, and there's over 600 ships have wrecked outside. It's very dangerous, not the best place to do your navigation. And this would be an example of a geographical challenge or barrier that has proved the movement of people, goods, and ideas. This barrier, as cool as it seems to us, it's really not good for moving goods back and forth. You wreck boats, and this almost serves as a barrier keeping people out of the state. We'll talk more about this in the next video.